Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Split, the young adult book review podcast for readers and writers. I'm Bryan Cohen of the Ted Saves the World series. That's Robert Scanlon of the Dreamer Chronicles, and he is sucking the life out of his face.
Something touched me.
With only his touch.
I felt shattered.
You did feel shattered. You looked shattered, but now you look better. You look better. How you doing today?
I'm cold. It's been 6 degrees in the morning, which is 43 of your degrees. And I don't know, why does America get more degrees than we do? I don't get that. And
I think it's because we don't understand the concept of less. We always want more.
That's true. That's true. America, the greedy nation. No, it's an abundance thing. It's an abundance mentality. We're always going to have more degrees. Yeah, so it's a bit cold in the mornings, but it gets up to, I'll talk in your language, 68, 70 during the day. So that's kind of nice, and it's sunny. But in the mornings, it's a little bit of a shock to us. We have this Antarctic wave blowing through, so I'm hoping that that blows past. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what is this? This is a subtropics. We're not supposed to have Antarctic waves.
No Antarctic waves. Get out of here.
And how are you?
Things are good here. It's been pretty warm. Been playing a lot of soccer, aka football, and it makes me feel more Australian/European.
Exactly. Well, funny enough, we call it soccer in Australia because football is rugby in Australia.
Yeah.
Is, when I first came here from England,
I go, even more confused.
I know. But we will not confuse any of our listeners because they must be by now thinking, what the hell? When are they going to get to the review?
When is this weather show going to be over and start talking about Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi? And this is a young adult dystopian / superhero-esque. I mean, I've seen it referred to as a superhero origin. I don't know about that. Maybe just stick with dystopian, paranormal or something.
I don't know, romance-topian?
Romance-topian normal.
And recommended by Alma, by the way. So thank you, Alma, who also recommended Graceling.
Yeah. Good. Definitely thank you for the recommendation. And I'm cool with just getting right into this and usual summary, what we thought from a writer's perspective, takeaways, and prompt. Good to go?
Good to go.
All right. Confined to an asylum for a deadly power she can't control, Juliet thinks the crumbling world has forgotten her. When a madman seeks to use her abilities for his own personal gain, a boy from her past is her only chance of escape. As their plans to run solidify, Juliet learns that there's a fine line between being a monster and becoming a hero. So,
sounds good when you put it like that.
It sounds good when you put it like that. And here's the thing, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Tahereh Mafi is a good writer. I have no question of that from reading this book.
Yes.
Some of her descriptive passages in this book are killer, really good. There's some that just stick out as, man, that's a really good comparison. That's a really good contrast. That's really interesting. But there are just too many in this book for my taste. Too many descriptions in this book. Too many internal comparisons. And it prevented me from enjoying the book or completing it in a rapid manner. I mean, everyone who listens regularly knows that I listen to the audiobook versions of this, and we tape two at once. So I'll listen to one audiobook straight through and another straight through. This one I had to take breaks because I just got bogged down in the description and didn't want to read it. And I think a lot of people like this book. There's a lot of positive reviews. But this one was difficult for me, even though I believe that Tahereh Mafi is a good writer.
Yeah, I think that's very diplomatically said. And there is a good story in here. I think the premise is good, and some of the scenes are exciting. But it does take quite a bit to get to those. And it's interesting what you say about that being the descriptive elements that bothered you, the things that bothered me. I found it hard going. It wasn't an enjoyable story, Armour. It wasn't an enjoyable story for me. But I could find, and I like what you said, that there's a good writer coming through here. So, when we come to the writer's perspective, it'll be more evident. But it could have taken some sharpening up. And for you, obviously, that was to do with the descriptive passages. And that's interesting. Maybe they came out differently in the audio version. For me, it was the constant being in this girl's head, and she was.
Well,
just,
I do mean in her head description. I mean more. I mean her internal descriptive.
Oh, her internal stuff just went, oh, no. And I get, yeah, all right already. I get it. I get you're torn. I get you think you're a monster, but you're not sure. It was overstated.
Yeah, and I think overstated is a good word for it. I think that a lot of people may identify with her,
right,
with Juliet,
right,
because of her melodramatic way of thinking. I remember thinking very melodramatically as a teen. It's like kind of going back inside my own teenage brain, which is not a place I want to be. And that's possibly another reason why I might have had trouble.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good point about young adult books. We review them from our own perspective, of course, and we try to broaden that when we talk about from a writer's perspective. And I did the same as you. I thought, what was it that attracted people about this? Because I did find it hard going. It wasn't unenjoyable. I mean, it was entertaining enough, but it was not something that I would necessarily rush to in my lunch hour or at night to pick up again. Whereas almost, some of the other books that we've recommended and loved, that is the case.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. To get the reviews that it has, it must be because there's something that young people really, and maybe young women particularly, identify with in this girl who, the metaphor of being a monster where whoever you touch, you drain some terrible energy from, or you cause tremendous pain. That's a metaphor for girls who maybe think that they're unlovable, or that their favourite boy's not going to like them, and so that inner torment that for me just went on too much. And it's okay, I don't mind the inner torment, I just want you to show it to me. I don't want her to be constantly going through the internal dialogue of it, and so that for me was what spoiled it. But the idea is interesting, that there are, it's not a new idea, but that there are powers developing inside of us that are different and potentially dangerous and may threaten society and cause divisiveness and maybe even be used by some people as weapons. I mean, the premise is great. Don't have an issue with the premise.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of Divergent in that it's another book that we didn't particularly care for, but obviously a lot of people identify with that girl who doesn't fit in and is hunted by society thing.
Yeah, that's true, actually. And I think it has a very similar feel to Divergent.
Yeah.
The
I agree.
Is similar. It's. I must admit, it got better for me when, probably in the latter third, maybe.
I have right here written the final third of the book was interesting to me. I wrote that exact line.
Oh, Bryan, we're so similar,
Oh, I know. It's not the split. It's the togetherness huggy hour.
The unity. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you want to take it away on why that was the case then?
Well, I think, and we don't want to do too many spoilers here, but when Juliet finds a new gang of people and the dialogue-heavy scenes start taking over because we're having new people talk. We need to have new people introduced. Those were very strong. Those were some of the strongest. I remember I was getting a tie. I was at a tie shop when I was listening to this in particular. And I remember thinking to myself, this is the most interesting scene in the book so far. And it's when she's talking to the leader of this new gang.
Yes.
And maybe that was just the balance of dialogue between her inner monologue that I needed. And also, I think I liked the direction it was going, which is why I think either the book could have started there, or I bet book 2 is a lot more interesting because it starts from that place, which is maybe more in the direction of books that I like.
Yes. What did you think about this kind of odd romantic triangle between Juliet, Adam, and Warner?
It was dumb.
Don't hold back.
I mean, Warner wasn't a very developed bad guy. He was just kind of an evil dude, and
You know what I want to? Do you want to say? Hear what I said because you're on that. Sorry, I interrupted you, but then you interrupted me
no.
about the last third. I said Warner was confusing, a bit like a poor cartoon version of a Batman villain.
He didn't have that voice in
No,
the audiobook, by the way, but it would have been pretty funny if every time he talked, he was like, Julian. But yeah, he didn't do it for me. And I went along and read the descriptions for books 2 and 3 just to kind of see.
Yeah.
And I guess it seems like that triangle kind of comes back around in a way. And maybe that was really the intention for setting that aspect up for the future book. So maybe it's a grand plan thing that doesn't pay off at this moment. But at this point in the series, it didn't pan out for me.
No, it didn't make sense. Here's a kind of really kind of he's cracked. I mean, he's around the bend. And so why on earth she feels this attraction to him, which then comes and goes, and then his character seems to be completely unpredictable. It's inconsistent, and so I just didn't understand it. And I thought that could have been, it put me off the book because I thought that the way that she was drawn to Adam and the fact that he turned out to be a childhood hottie of hers, I thought that was all perfectly believable.
Fine, that worked.
It was well done, and if they'd been cast in a movie together, I would have said there was chemistry. But I didn't understand. I didn't get the chemistry for Warner, like you say. Not only did he not do it for me as a character, but I didn't kind of get why she was drawn to him.
See, now if it was the sort of thing where they really described him as mega hot and there was like a feeling from the beginning from him instead of from the beginning. She has all this stuff, like she's very passive at the beginning, very passive character, kind of quiet, demure, is talking in her head a lot. She's scared to be close to Adam. And then she gets taken out, and then she's like, I'm not going to be your weapon to Warner. And it's like, where did that come from?
Yes.
Like, all of a sudden, she's like that. Now, if it would have been different, if it would have been like, she had some feeling of obligation, or he saved her, and she had a feeling like, he saved me. Like, of course I need to dress up in this dress or whatever. Maybe then it would have hit home a bit more. He still could have been crazy.
Yeah,
but
well, exactly. Yeah. He could have been. He could have not had all his marbles there, but that would have been if that had been painted in earlier on, and like you say, if he'd had a save the cat moment, for her, then I suppose we're sort of leading into the writer's perspective, which I'm ready for. So
cool. I'm ready. If you want to start off.
For me, I think actually what would have made this better from a writer's perspective is if the editor had said, cut this right back and make it a novella and make it the lead up into the book, and it would have been much more fast-paced action. I think it would have been better than Divergent, and would have given us a sharper sense of Juliet and her torment, as opposed to kind of making us endure her torment. I mean, enduring it is good. I mean, I've read books with torture scenes that made me squirm and I just felt drained after. So I'm not against torment. It has to be done for a reason. And for me, there are a lot of scenes in this book that just didn't need to be there, or they were too drawn out. And so I thought, what would I do with that if I was an editor? Well, I would compress it. And
even making it shorter by 10,000 words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every little bit
Yeah,
helps.
yeah. I think so. I mean, just for me, it's about chopping out all those painful "will I, won't I, will I, won't I." I'm just such a monster things, and or turning those into a reason why. Show me. Don't just let me sit in Juliet's head because I don't even know yet. So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost a version of showing. It's like you're
it
showing her
is.
thoughts.
It is.
And I talk about it, when you show so much of the inside of a person's brain, the showing becomes telling.
Definitely.
And I think show don't tell is always the advice you get, but you can take it too far. So for me, that aspect of the book took it too far.
Yeah, I mean, it's as soon as you make internal monologue a form of telling, then you disconnect the reader from the action, from the story progression. And so, if she's saying, "I decided I would take a different approach to Warner." Yeah, well, okay, you decided that, but we don't understand how she arrived at the decision or what forced the decision or, how the decision plays out in reality. So all you get is her telling the reader, "This is what I decided to do." It's a little bit like an actor jumping on stage and saying, "Shakespeare decided that this scene would be rather violent." And okay, fine. Yes. And so for me, I think as a writer, I've done it. This is why I've done it. And I've had the feedback in my own book that says, in the first book specifically, that said, there's too much telling. And I look back and I think, why? There's not too much telling. And then I realized where it was. It's in Serena's head that there's too much telling. Got it. Yeah. And it's an easy trap to fall into because you think, well, it's the character speaking, but it's not.
Yeah.
The character's just informing us how we should be thinking about the character, which is just telling in another way.
Yeah.
There, I'm off my soapbox now.
Step down. So there's a scene, I was going to talk about something else, but something came to me. There's a scene where a character is shot, and it's dramatic. It's a dramatic scene. And I'm listening to it on my audiobook, and all of a sudden, so Juliet's with one character, then all of a sudden she's with another character. And I was like, wait, what happened? And I rewind the book and I'm like, listen to it again. And I'm like, oh, someone was shot, but no one ever told me they were shot. No one ever said something happened. There was never a loud boom. There was never the smell of gunpowder. There was never the sight of blood until much later on. And I said, okay, you're going to tell me all this stuff in her head, which, like you said, in moderation can be fine. And then one of the main characters in the book, sorry, spoilers, gets shot, and you're not even going to tell me that it happened? You're going to skip over the shot?
Yeah.
You're really going to skip over the shot. When something interesting finally happens in this book, you're going to skip over the shot. I had to re-listen. And there was still no shot. I was later told that someone was shot. That is not what I want. I want to, and I'm sure I've done this, and I'm sure you've done this, and we've all done this. But it was my Seinfeld moment of this book. It really was. Where was the shot?
Where's the shot?
There could have been a shot here. Where was the shot?
Come on, you don't fire a gun and not tell anyone. It's exciting. We want to know. That's funny. It's funny. It's interesting, isn't it? Because that went right over my head in the text. So it must be something to do with when you're listening on audio, you're expecting to find out these things. And I suppose perhaps, excuse me, when you're reading, sometimes if the word shot comes up, then you've got you can fill in the visual imagery, and that kind of then retrospectively applies that to the confusion you had before, and right, I got that. But when you're listening, there's no time to fill in that visual imagery. Anyway, I'm getting too deep. How did they, in the book, there's lots of it's an interesting writing style where there are lots of strike-throughs in the texts where she thinks something. They do a
strike-through sound, like a...
So,
which I thought was kind of cool, actually.
Okay. So I thought he was hot. I thought he was a bit mean. You mean like that?
Yep.
Okay.
Like they would say the thing that was about to be crossed off and then do that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's because that's all the stuff in her head, which was kind of okay. Some people didn't like it in the reviews.
Yeah.
I do look. It's not an awful book, and I do think people should go read the reviews before trying to, before spending any hours with it, because you'll see that the top most helpful review is one that says, "I really wanted to like this book." And that's kind of how I felt about it. Because, and you said it well, Tahira Murphy has got something. And it's not fully developed in this book. And if you could say anything about from a writer's perspective, it's this latter third of the book that seems to have really grabbed me a lot more, and maybe that's the same for the younger audience reading it. Maybe they struggled with the first 2/3 too, but what made them leave that 4 or 5 star review was the latter third, where Juliet really starts to matter.
Yeah, I agree. Well, are you ready for some famous takeaways?
I think they're getting so famous now that we've really got to start stepping up how good these takeaways really are.
We need a virtual assistant. Yeah.
Just to manage the feedback, the fan mail.
Manage all the takeaway feedback. Would you like to go first or second?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go first.
Okay.
So, takeaway number 1. I think that the antagonist needs to have believable motivations and not be just some kind of vanilla villain. With B-movie lines. So Warner could have been so much more, but he was inconsistent. So, please write your antagonist in the same way that you would write your protagonist. And so, again, I've done this. I've written the moustache-twirling evil villain, so I understand it from a writer's perspective. But from a reader's perspective, it's wonderful when the villains are really deep, menacing. When Heath Ledger played the Joker in Batman, that was what a villain should be. Yeah.
I love the phrase vanilla villain.
You like that?
I want to write it down. Vanilla villain.
What's yours?
My takeaway, as I watch a spider come over here to kill me, is and this is kind of going to the other side. If readers don't like your main character, if they're annoyed by your main character, they'll have trouble getting through your story. Yes. So just find that balance and make sure that the character has, has redeeming qualities that make everybody relate to them, maybe not just 13-year-old melodramatic people.
We're going to get all this fan mail now from teenagers saying, we're not melodramatic. Look, I think, again, we're not the target audience. So you're right. There's that sense of young girls maybe look younger than the protagonist in the book and younger than Juliet, looking up to it. From memory, it's pretty clean as well. I think there's a bit of kissing and such, and sort of, her thinking about hot bodies, but don't think there's anything terribly explicit. There's sexual references.
No, as I recall. There's some showering, but I think it's clothed showering.
Yeah, that's right. So, certainly, 13-year-old girls would have no problem reading it. I haven't given it to my daughter because I just didn't think it's her kind of thing. But she's not old enough. She's 12 and she hasn't gone the boy route yet. So she's sort of, it wouldn't be appealing to her, because this is definitely a love triangle. And that brings me to my third takeaway, which is I recommend that you bring the reader to the action quickly, even if it's a love triangle. We won't wait forever. And I think a kind of bonus takeaway is that the inciting incident to me wasn't obvious. I didn't know where the story really started. What was it that drove Juliet?
I suppose it's her getting taken out of the asylum. I don't know.
If that's the case, that's a long way into the book.
It is pretty long.
Spoiler. But yeah, so, I needed something in the first chapter to well,
maybe it's Adam showing up.
Well, I reckon it is. Yeah,
but
I reckon it's Adam showing up. But I didn't. But that needs to mean everything to the protagonist, and all I got was that Juliet was just kind of curious and that he was hot. Okay, but what's that going to do for your life? How's that going to change your stakes?
Yeah.
I suppose what she meant was that if she touched him, then she'd prove that she's really a monster because she can't have the boy that she always wanted.
Sure.
And that's one of the great premises of the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, read it.
Many.
Tell us what you think. Make us wrong.
Read it.
I'm sorry, Alma.
I've got a prompt.
Alma, thank you for recommending it. You know, I hoped you liked it, and I'm sure you wouldn't have recommended a book you didn't like. And I'm sorry if we trashed a book you liked. Please.
Hey, we got to be honest. We got to be honest here.
There's people. They want an honest prompt as well. They call you. Honest Bryan Prompts.
HonestBryanPrompts.net. So, here's the prompt of the week. Your touch can kill any living thing. How would your life change if you had this devastating power? What would you miss most about reaching out and touching someone?
That's what I miss most about you, Bryan. It's just Skype. That's all it is.
I know, it's just Skype. We can't hug. We can't shake hands. We can't high five.
We are true.
Answer the prompt of the week on thesplitbookreviews.com. You can also email us at podcast@thesplitbookreviews.com for future suggestions. We now on the website have a great little tool that Robert put up that lists our upcoming books up to 4 weeks in advance.
It's 6.
6 weeks. Wow. Yeah. So if you want to follow along, you really can now, and you don't just have a week like us. So next week, we're going to do Grasshopper Jungle by Andrew Smith, which was a rollicking good time. Definitely not clean.
No.
And was that a recommendation? Was that a recommendation or no?
I think we should be spoiler free.
Yeah, we should be
good
spoiler
or not,
free.
you'll find out next week.
Exactly. Was Grasshopper Jungle a recommendation by anybody?
Oh, sorry, that was what you were asking. I am so stupid this morning. No, it was a recommendation by me.
Way to be. Cool. Well, go check us out on iTunes. Leave us a review. It helps us spread our world dominance. And that is what we truly want out of this. So thank you for listening. Thank you again for the recommendation. We are The Split. That's Robert. I'm Bryan. Come check us out next week for another very honest review.
Yes. Be careful who you touch.
Thank you guys for watching. Somewhere on this page is a subscribe button to The Split channel. We do reviews every week. We would love it if you followed us every single week. Isn't that right, Robert?
That's exactly right. Follow us now. Hit the subscribe button.
Do it.